It was a very difficult time, and we are a family, and we will always be a family, and we will get through this time and hopefully be a stronger family for it.
Angelina Jolie has spent nearly a decade navigating one of Hollywood's most public and bitter divorces. For years, her silence felt loud. Interviews were carefully worded. Legal documents carried more weight than any red carpet statement. But slowly, through court filings, candid interviews, and the quiet choices of her children, a fuller picture of her marriage to Brad Pitt has emerged. What she has revealed is not simply the story of a failed romance. It is the story of a woman who says she waited long enough. In this video, we find out the truth. The relationship that captivated the world. When Angelina Jolie first spoke about meeting Brad Pitt on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the story sounded almost cinematic. Two actors, both magnetic and globally recognized, thrown together in a film about a married couple living double lives. The irony of that premise would not be lost on anyone watching events unfold in real life. Over the following years, Jolie has described their connection as something that grew gradually, rooted initially in friendship and creative collaboration. In a 2007 conversation with Vogue, she reflected that it was not love at first sight, but rather a recognition that they functioned well together. That kind of slow build carries its own weight. It creates something that feels earned, something that, when it collapses, leaves a far more complicated wreckage behind. At the time of filming, Pitt was still married to Jennifer Aniston, a fact that planted the relationship squarely in the center of tabloid culture before it had even fully begun. The gossip machine treated the story as simple: a villain, a victim, a romance. Jolie has never accepted that framing. She has consistently pointed to complexity where others preferred a clean narrative. The couple went public with their relationship in 2005. By that point, Jolie already had 3 children. Maddox had been adopted from Cambodia in 2002, Zahara from Ethiopia in 2005, and Pax would follow from Vietnam in 2007. Pitt formally adopted Maddox and Zahara. Together, they also welcomed biological children, Shiloh in 2006, and twins Knox and Vivian in 2008. 6 children, one of the most photographed families in the world. A life that appeared to outsiders almost impossibly full. For years, the image held. They made films together, including the deeply personal drama By the Sea in 2015, which Jolie both wrote and directed. They supported humanitarian causes. They acquired Chateau Miraval, a sprawling French winery estate, in 2008, and were married there in 2014. The vineyard would later become the battleground for one of the most contentious financial disputes in Hollywood history. What seemed, from the outside, like a life built on shared purpose and genuine partnership was something more fragmented behind closed doors. Jolie has said, with careful phrasing, that the decision to leave was not made lightly. It took a great deal, she told The Guardian, to reach a position where separation from the father of her children felt necessary. That language, restrained and deliberate, signals something heavier than irreconcilable differences filed on a court form. The public did not fully understand what she meant when she filed for divorce on September 19, 2016, 4 days after a private flight from France to Los Angeles that ended everything. But the picture that has since emerged is far more disturbing than anyone initially knew. The incident that ended everything. The September 2016 flight from Chateau Miraval to Los Angeles has become one of the most examined private moments in recent celebrity history. What began as a family trip home ended with Angelina Jolie filing for divorce and investigators from both the FBI and the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services opening inquiries into what happened aboard that aircraft. For years, the details remained sealed. Initial reports were vague: a confrontation, an altercation, some kind of incident involving the children. Pitt's representatives issued categorical denials. His team insisted that no physical misconduct occurred, that the confrontation escalated but never crossed into abuse. In 2022, through a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit filed by a plaintiff initially identified only as Jane Doe, an FBI report obtained by NBC News and other outlets revealed significantly more detail. Jolie told investigators that after takeoff, Pitt confronted her in a bathroom on the plane, grabbed her by the head, grabbed her by the shoulders, shook her, and pushed her against the bathroom wall. Outside the door, she said their children were crying, asking if she was all right. According to the detailed FBI report, Pitt allegedly responded to one of the children defending Jolie by lunging toward the child. Jolie grabbed Pitt from behind to stop him. He then threw himself backward into airplane seats, injuring Jolie's back and elbow. The children, who ranged in age from 8 to 15 at the time, were described as shell-shocked. In a separate court filing in 2022 as part of the Chateau Miraval legal dispute, Jolie's legal team stated directly that Pitt choked one of the children and struck another in the face when they tried to defend their mother. These were the first detailed, named allegations to appear in a public legal document. Pitt has denied the most serious allegations. No criminal charges were ever filed. The FBI closed its investigation in November 2016. The Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services also concluded that Pitt did not physically abuse the children. A source close to Pitt at the time stated he did not hit a child in the face and insisted the confrontation was spiraling and he put his hands on one of the children to regain control, not to cause injury. What makes the situation more layered is what Jolie's legal team alleged about timing. In court filings from April 2024, her attorneys argued that Pitt's history of physically abusing Jolie started well before the 2016 flight. The plane incident, they stated, was the first time it extended to the children. These claims have been strenuously denied by Pitt's representatives, who have described the allegations as untrue and as legal strategy deployed in connection with the financial dispute over the winery. What is not disputed is that Jolie filed for divorce within 4 days of landing, that the FBI launched an investigation, that Pitt subsequently agreed to substance and alcohol testing, individual counseling, and monitored visits with the children as part of an initial temporary custody arrangement, and that Pitt himself, speaking to GQ Style in 2017, acknowledged he had stopped drinking and described the situation as self-inflicted chaos in his personal life. The silence Jolie maintained publicly for years was not the silence of someone who had moved on easily. It was the silence of someone with an active legal battle, ongoing custody proceedings, and 6 children watching every word. When the details finally emerged through court documents, they reframed the entire narrative around what this relationship had actually been. The battle over silence, the winery, and what the NDA revealed. When Angelina Jolie sold her 50% stake in Chateau Miraval to a subsidiary of the Stoli Group in 2021 for approximately $67 million, she did so without Pitt's knowledge or prior agreement. Pitt sued her in February 2022, alleging she had breached a verbal and implied contractual agreement that neither party would sell their share without the other's consent. What began as a property dispute rapidly expanded into something far more revealing. Jolie's legal team filed a countersuit that disclosed a detail few had known. Before the sale, when Jolie had attempted to sell her stake directly to Pitt, he had refused to purchase it unless she agreed to sign a broad non-disclosure agreement. That NDA, her attorneys alleged, was specifically designed to prevent her from speaking about his abuse outside of court for the rest of her life. In court documents filed in July 2024, Jolie's attorneys stated that Pitt had structured the proposed agreement with an $8.5 million holdback, meaning she would only receive a portion of the payment if she agreed to be contractually prohibited from speaking publicly about the allegations she had made. Her legal team described it as a mechanism designed to force her silence about his abuse and cover up. They argued this was the actual reason negotiations broke down, and that she then sold to an outside party because the alternative required her to surrender her ability to speak. Pitt's team has disputed this characterization at every turn. Sources close to him have described the NDA as a standard business protection clause and dismissed the abuse allegations as untrue, repeated for legal effect within the Winery litigation. A source told Fox News Digital that the allegations had no merit and were being deployed strategically. What the Winery case also surfaced was a December 2024 court ruling ordering Jolie to turn over unredacted internal communications from the period when she was negotiating the Stoli sale. A Los Angeles Superior Court judge found that she had improperly shielded certain non-attorney business communications by claiming legal privilege. Pitt's attorneys argued those messages would demonstrate that the sale was deliberately structured to cause him financial disadvantage. Jolie's team countered that the case itself was a punishment for leaving. A source close to Jolie told Fox News Digital that Pitt and his team knew the NDAs would never appear at trial, and that the entire effort was designed for press coverage rather than legal resolution. An ally of Jolie's described the lawsuit plainly. Pitt was using the Winery case to punish her for leaving. The case, which has a trial currently scheduled for early 2027, remains unresolved. A mediation window has been set for October 2026. The combined asset valuation placed on Miraval in recent filings is approximately $164 million. Brad Pitt has since sued Jolie for $35 million in damages related to the sale. What the Winery battle exposed, more than the financial dispute at its center, was the architecture of control Jolie says existed within the marriage. Her willingness to sell her stake at a loss, rather than sign a document barring her from speaking, says something about what she considered the higher priority. She chose her voice over the money, the children, the name changes, and what came after. Perhaps the most visible and lasting evidence of what fractured inside the Jolie-Pitt family is the quiet, steady pattern of name changes among their 6 children. On her 18th birthday in May 2024, Shiloh filed legal paperwork to remove Pitt from her last name. Her request was granted in August of that year. She is now Shiloh Jolie. A source close to Pitt told People at the time that he was aware and upset, describing the moment as a reminder that he had lost his children. He had always wanted a daughter, the source said. The news was not easy. Zahara did not wait for a legal filing. In November 2023, when joining the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority at Spelman College, she introduced herself as Zahara Marley Jolie. No Pitt. When she graduated from Spelman in May 2026, she accepted her diploma under the same name. Vivian, one of the twins, appeared in the playbill for the Broadway production of The Outsiders in 2024 as Vivienne Jolie. She served as a producer's assistant alongside her mother. Whether the change is permanent remains unclear, but the choice in that professional context was deliberate. Maddox, now 24, became the latest to make the shift when he appeared in the credits of Jolie's 2026 film Couture as Maddox Jolie. He served as third assistant director on the project. His previous credit on Jolie's 2024 Netflix film Maria had still listed him as Maddox Jolie Pitt. The shift was noticed immediately. Friends of Pitt described it to TMZ as a textbook example of a successful campaign to separate a family. Pitt and Maddox have been estranged since the 2016 incident. Pax, who also worked on Maria as a production assistant, has not been in regular contact with his father either. Of the 6 children, only Knox, now 17, has not made a public move to distance himself from the Pitt name. Pitt acknowledged in a 2025 GQ interview that the finalized divorce felt less significant than observers might have expected. When asked whether anything felt different being on the other side of the settlement, he said he did not think it was that major a thing, just something coming to fruition, legally. That answer, flat and seemingly unbothered, generated significant reaction given the scale and pain of the 8-year process. A source close to Pitt told Us Weekly in early 2025 that the divorce had been controlling his life for so many years, that he loved Jolie and knows he made mistakes, and that the split turned the kids against him as well. He does not blame Jolie for everything, the source added. He has acknowledged the situation as divisive and toxic. Pitt got sober shortly after the 2016 divorce filing. He joined Alcoholics Anonymous and attended meetings for approximately a year and a half. In a 2025 interview on Dax Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast, Pitt described that period plainly. He was on his knees, he said. He needed rebooting. He needed to wake up. He described it as one of the hardest and most necessary periods of his life. The sobriety has been sustained. That part of the story carries genuine weight. But sustained sobriety did not rebuild the relationships with the children. Sources have noted that Pitt has never felt more joy than at Shiloh's birth, and that watching his children sever their connection to his name has been deeply painful. There is no legal remedy for estrangement. A court can finalize a divorce. It cannot require children, once grown, to stay. Jolie has not commented publicly on the name changes. She has not needed to. The choices of her children have spoken with a clarity that no interview could match. The story of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt is not a story of reconciliation or redemption. It is the story of two extraordinarily visible people who built something together, raised 6 children in the center of global attention, and then tore that structure apart in ways that are still reverberating years later. Jolie's decision to speak, through court documents, legal filings, and carefully chosen words in interviews, has not been a performance of victimhood. It has been a deliberate unraveling of a silence that powerful men, in her telling, attempted to make permanent. Angelina Jolie finally speaks, what she has revealed about Brad Pitt. For 8 years, Angelina Jolie said very little in public. She gave no tell-all interviews. She made no dramatic statements on social media. When journalists pushed on the subject of her divorce, she drew firm lines. During a 2024 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, a reporter asked directly about the status of her divorce proceedings. Jolie's answer was a single word: no. She was not there to explain herself. Not then. That silence was not emptiness. It was a choice, and a deliberate one. After the divorce was finally settled on December 30th, 2024, a source close to Jolie told people that her children had actually wanted more from her all along. They had urged her over years to defend herself publicly. Her response to them was consistent: focus on changing laws, not on telling public stories. She did not speak ill of Pitt publicly or privately, the source confirmed. She was, the insider said, trying hard to be light after a dark time. Then, just days after the settlement was signed, Jolie sat for a W magazine cover interview for their Best Performances issue. Asked about her pet peeves, she answered without hesitation. My pet peeve is somebody who is a liar, she said. Somebody who feels a need to not say the truth or what they want, what they feel. There's a big version of that, and I'm not trying to be heavy about it, but people who say one thing and mean another, who aren't completely who they are. I think a lot of people don't say what they mean. She named no one, and she did not need to. The timing was not coincidental. What makes this moment significant is the full context surrounding it. The court filings Jolie authorized over the previous 2 years had already laid out detailed allegations. The 2016 flight. The claim that Pitt grabbed her by the head and pushed her against a bathroom wall. The allegation that he turned on 2 of their children when they tried to defend her. The assertion that when she later attempted to sell her stake in Chateau Miraval, Pitt refused to buy it unless she signed a broad non-disclosure agreement with an $8.5 million financial holdback, specifically designed, her attorneys argued, to silence her from ever speaking about the abuse again. Pitt has denied the most serious allegations and disputed the characterization of the NDA. No criminal charges were ever filed after either the FBI or the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services investigated the 2016 incident. But Jolie's willingness to let those filings speak, and then to choose her words in a magazine the week the divorce closed, signals something she had been building toward for years, not a performance of victimhood, not a public war, something quieter and, for that reason, harder to dismiss. The public stories, it turns out, were always there. She simply waited until the legal process gave her the ground to stand on before letting them be heard. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.